Now, this comes as a team of independent experts from the UN Human Rights Council has announced that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The findings by the three-member team are the latest accusations of genocide against Netanyahu's government. At least 60,000 people have been killed in the almost 2 years since the war broke out, half of them women and children. Now, in a moment, I'll be talking to our International Affairs Desk editor, James Andre. But first, let me cross to London to speak to Professor Yossi Mekelberg, a senior fellow at Chatham House. Professor Mekelberg, thank you for your time. With Israel's massive ground incursion into Gaza City now underway, we know that the Israeli army chief has told a parliamentary committee he's not being given any clear guidance on what is next. So what level of discord now exists within the IDF over the war in Gaza?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I think from the first time that this decision, this proposal to enter into Gaza City was put on the cabinet table, the Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, was against it. He was against it because he believes, first and foremost, it won't bring the hostages back. He thinks that it involves an army that has been military, that has been 2 years, constant war on multi-front, 7 fronts at least. There is fatigue, which creeps into the military, into an urban warfare, which also the most difficult. And as a result of it, might also end in committing potentially more war crimes. And without understanding what is the strategy behind it, how it's going to advance Israeli political aims.
There appears to be no clear exit strategy, does there?
No, there is no exit strategy because from the beginning, the main priority was eliminating Hamas, then added also the releasing of the hostages. But eliminating Hamas, it's a slogan, it's a mantra. What does it mean? Defeating it to a point that you can negotiate with it some political arrangement, or even, as even the Arab League said, Hamas won't play a role in governing Gaza in the future. Or what more and more seems to be the case, as you know, after the airstrike in Doha, that it means literally, basically eliminating almost every single member of Hamas. If this is the aim right now, this is a war that will never end. And more we see that actually the aim is more than to save the hostages, is to save Netanyahu and Netanyahu's government, because he doesn't want the war to end. It would lead to investigation into his culpability into October 7, 2023. It will probably lead to for election. So he will continue the war as long as it suits his political needs.
Let me just pause there for a moment, Yossi, as we listen to what the families of those remaining hostages in Gaza, who are now setting up camp in front of the Prime Minister's residence in Jerusalem, this is what they had to tell reporters earlier.
We heard the bombs are getting stronger all over Gaza. Our children are there. The Prime Minister Netanyahu, instead of saving our children, is bombing them.
We arrived late last night to send a clear and straight message to the government and, of course, the Prime Minister of Israel. We will not leave this place until you give us all our loved ones back. If you don't stop the war now and bring back all the hostages, you will be responsible for the death and the disappearance of all the remaining hostages, dead and alive.
And listening to those responses is Professor Yossi Mekelberg from Chatham House in London. Yossi, how much actual support is there in Israel for this incursion into Gaza City?
I think if you look, most Israelis support actually what we just heard from the families of the hostages. For many months, they say, for now the priority should be reaching a deal that will see the hostages returning home, not continuing the war. It's not that Israelis, if you look at the opinion polls, are against defeating Hamas, definitely don't want to see Hamas plays a role in future Palestinian government. But for them, the priority, and they say it week after week when they protest, thousands of them protest in the streets, they want to see the hostages back. It's also the military, because this is part of the ethos of the Israeli society. You don't leave an injured person, a soldier, a civilian in the battlefield, and you don't leave hostages in captivity, definitely not for 2 years. And Netanyahu is the first prime minister to completely ignore that. And this is the same prime minister, by the way, that released more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners for one Israeli soldier that was taken captive 20 years ago.
Yossi, I just want to talk about this other element, which is last night Prime Minister Netanyahu was addressing a conference where he admitted Israel is facing increasing isolation on the world stage and will have to become more self-reliant in the years to come. He said the nation would have to be a super Sparta, in apparent reference to the isolationist and warrior policies pursued by the ancient Greek city-state. And of course, this comes as mounting international pressure and restrictions threaten Israel's access to global trade of weapons imports. Let's just hear what he told the conference.
Western Europe has large Islamist minorities. They're vocal. Many of them are politically motivated. They align with Hamas. They align with Iran. They pressure the governments of Western Europe, many of whom are kindly disposed to Israel, but they see that they're being overtaken, really, by campaigns of violent protest and constant intimidation. And so they fall into this siege. And we can break this siege.
With me is Professor Mekelberg from Chatham House in London. The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange plummeted in the wake of those comments. How is the Prime Minister's statements landing with Israel that the country has to prepare to become effectively a pariah state, keeping in mind it's already a very polarised society?
Absolutely right. I mean, this was quite between bizarre and scary speech by Netanyahu. He's developing, again, in order for him to stay in power, he now comes with a new narrative. His narrative, for months he would say, oh, we're just one step ahead from total victory. That hasn't happened. So he tried to increase the pressure, as we see in Gaza City. Then he said, oh, Israel will never be in a better political situation among nations. And what he sees, exactly the opposite happened. He pushes Israel into becoming a pariah state. Even what he wants to achieve, that's preventing recognition of Palestinian state, more and more countries are actually going to recognize that without the war probably would not have recognized Palestinian state without a peace agreement. And if you look at the history of Sparta, and I don't know what is a super Sparta, this is a country that, or political entity that didn't last for very long. So if this is the idea, a country that was actually its achievements, its success was because it was a liberal democracy, because it was close to the most development countries in the world, and even reached peace agreements and normalization with other countries in the Middle East. And all of this is going to be reversed as a result of a prime minister that pushed Israel into complete isolation.
One final element, Yossi, because I know you have to rush off, but in the meantime, the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, left Israel. He flew directly to Qatar, his visit obviously coming 1 week after that attack by Israel on Hamas political leaders inside the Emirate. Of course, it drew widespread condemnation. Let's just take a listen to what Rubio told reporters as he arrived in Qatar.
We have a very short window of time in which a deal could happen. We don't have months anymore, and we probably have days and maybe a few weeks, so it's a key moment. If any country in the world can help mediate it, Qatar is the one. They're the ones that can do it. Now, I don't know if they can after what happened, but I think they could. If anyone can, they can.
Yossi, in the wake of that strike on Qatar, just how much damage has Israel done with the populations of neighbouring Arab countries that were planning to increase ties with Israel?
We saw yesterday the summit in Doha the all-out condemnation of Israel. Someone like President of Egypt, Sisi, that had close relations with Israel, talks about putting under danger a peace agreement that was signed in 1979 and withheld many the times and many pressures, the normalization with the UAE and Bahrain. I mean, this kind of behavior by the current Israeli government makes many countries see Israel as the most destabilizing force right now in the Middle East. When a country attacks thousands of kilometers away from home, a country which is not an enemy country, the country that is mediated a ceasefire, a country that was never an attack, originated from its own soil, and trying to kill the negotiating team of the Hamas, that could lead to a ceasefire agreement. Of course, across the region ask themselves if this is a rational, logical government that they can do business with.
Finally, just how far do you think the US is ready to support Netanyahu on its Gaza military plans? And won't that hurt its own relationship with its Middle East allies?
This is a great question, which is very difficult to answer, because right now the Netanyahu's government behavior harms also U.S. interests. Again, in Qatar, there is the biggest U.S. Navy base outside the United States. Israel apparently doesn't consult the United States, doesn't consult Washington of taking such a measure against an ally. And in this sense, you really ask yourself the question, why the United States support it? We saw before Trump was inaugurated, Israel was the one that pushed to a ceasefire, but he also allowed for Israel to violate, back in March, the ceasefire, caused the starvation there by stopping humanitarian aid, and doesn't stop what's happening right now, the assault on Gaza. So this question, I think, should be asked, but should be asked, people close to Trump himself, why he allows this to happen, and how does it serve American interest? Because I don't see this as in any shape or form serves U.S. national interest.
Professor Yossi Mekelberg, a senior fellow at Chatham House in London, thank you so much again for your time.